Is it time to forgive? So the big thought and often words around forgiveness that I've heard, that I've probably said, is, why should I forgive him or her? They were the ones who did whatever it is, insert the hurt here. So why should I just forgive them? So welcome to Super Aging, which is a show all about the different positive kinds of changes that we can make in our lives now that will also give us the benefit of living a longer, healthier life into the future. I'm Marianne from One Life to Flourish. I'm a wellness mindset coach and an intuitive energetic healer with a particular interest in improving midlife for women and how that's going to impact on them into the future as well. So, what do we actually mean by forgiveness? So, this is probably a useful thing just to kind of stop and think about, because we often see forgiveness as just letting the other person off the hook, as if by forgiving them, we're kind of saying that their actions, whatever they were okay. Hi, Roz, how are you today? So that's not really what it is, even though that was kind of my perspective for a number of years. Because I have to confess, for a long time, I really struggled with forgiveness. If I felt slighted, betrayed, or whatever by someone, then I refused to forgive them, to the point where I would usually cut them out of my life, unless they were related to me, of course. And I'd kind of have the attitude, that just serves them right. The fact is, though, that my actions probably didn't have a massive impact on them. Depending on how close I was to the person, it might have had a bit of an impact, but basically it was pretty much affecting me rather than them. Now, it's probably important at this point to just mention that there are two kinds of forgiveness. So one is probably the most important one, which is where we are forgiving other people. But an element to that is about forgiving yourself. So today I'm going to be focusing on forgiving other people. And next time I'm going to talk a little bit about the importance of self-forgiveness as well. So let's dive into what forgiveness actually really means. So this is about us choosing to let go of negative and quite often vengeful kinds of thoughts about another person, and just allow feelings of compassion and empathy to replace those more negative ones. So it's not that easy. The fact is that when we forgive, that's the important part, but there will always be an impact from whatever it was that made you feel those emotions. And that's okay. That little bit of the event remaining in you is okay, because that's part of our pathway to learn. But the most important thing is to actually let go of those negative thoughts, because when you keep them, you're actually allowing that particular person or people to kind of have a hold over you. So you're letting them be in control of you. So when we don't forgive, we're essentially giving our or part of our personal power away to that person or that situation. Yes, that's very true, Roz. So definitely it is really important to forgive ourselves, and it's also a great release to forgive, and that's what we're going to be looking at. So when we don't forgive people, as I said, we're allowing them to have power over us. And we're not creating a healthy emotional or physical kind of situation for ourselves. And this is because when we don't release those negative emotions, we're actually choosing to continually dwell on why we're feeling hurt. And sometimes this can create quite an impactful negative sort of almost emotional spiral, where you not only hold on to those initial negative feelings, but you kind of feed into them and you build up with more anger, more feelings of revenge, maybe more hostility or hatred. So I mean, didn't quite get to this stage myself, but I've certainly come across people who have been so unwilling to let go of those emotions that their whole life becomes almost entirely focused on the negative, and it just kind of takes over their life. And this basically has the effect of pushing the positive emotions right out of you, right out of your life. And even if it doesn't get to that point, just holding on to that, rehashing it, reliving it, still has quite a big impact on you physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And there's a whole range of things that can happen. I'm going to go through a few of them. So basically, if you're not letting go of stuff, when you get into a similar situation, you're going to bring that emotion back into the situation. Or you might have a new relationship coming in, and because you haven't let go of that negativity, you can end up basically sabotaging new experiences and new relationships with people. You're so focused on the past that you lose your ability to actually enjoy being in the present. You kind of become miserable, and it might be just in one part of your life, or it might be across the board, like I was saying. Now, one of the significant things that can happen when you just hold on tight to your, feelings, I suppose, of unforgiveness, is that you actually then start to have feelings of depression and anxiety that can increase if you keep on going. And you can actually get to the point where you feel like your life just lacks meaning and purpose. And because it does impact on you spiritually, you can also feel quite out of balance in terms of, I suppose, your values, your spiritual essence. So it's, really very impactful. And of course, it's going to have an impact on the people who are already part of your life, the connections that you've already got, how you respond to them, how your emotions are impacting on them just increases. Now, as I've talked about in the past, when we are allowing our emotions to impact on us, it affects not only our emotions, our mental health, our spiritual health, but also our body. And this is what happens with the situation when we're not being forgiving. So basically that builds up a kind of stress in your body. And as we know, stress is not a healthy thing. And particularly to do with being unwilling to forgive, it can do things like increasing your blood pressure. That's a fairly obvious one. And, by having heightened blood pressure, that impacts on your heart health as well. But the stress side of it also, it reduces your immune response and has an impact on other parts of your body, impacts on your hormonal system and that kind of thing, that can then lead to getting things like diabetes and so on. So it can be quite a horrible chain of illnesses, I suppose, that can come from holding on to those feelings. So obviously the other side of that is, if you actually do practice forgiveness, you can experience many great health benefits. So improved self-esteem is a really important one, as well as the more positive emotions. So this is kind of the emotional and mental side of it. So you should have less anxiety, less stress, and less of those symptoms of depression. And then your health should just generally improve. So your blood pressure will lower, your heart health will improve, and your immune system will improve as well. So general overall improvement in health. But the other interesting thing that researchers have found is that by practicing a total kind of forgiveness rather than a conditional forgiveness, we actually increase our longevity. So this is where it impacts back on the whole idea of super aging. It is an important part of being able to age well, just like dealing with any of our emotions. So how does it actually work? This is something I struggled with, even when I recognized how much I was holding on to unforgiveness. I'm kind of going, how do I actually change that? So forgiveness starts from making a choice. You have to actually choose to forgive someone. That's the first part. And sometimes that can be the hardest part. It's like I said at the beginning, choosing to forgive someone can sometimes feel like you're then saying, oh, it's okay, whatever you did, because I'm forgiving you. That's not really what forgiveness is about. It's about changing you, improving your outlook on life. Shouldn't have such a strong connection to the other person. I hope that makes sense. So, first of all, you're making a choice. Yes, you're going to forgive. And then actually reflect on the events and the emotions that led up to you feeling so unwilling to let the feelings go. And actually work on, seeing it from a different perspective. Oh, absolutely, Roz. Family is one of the hardest things. And there's certainly situations where forgiveness is so hard. And I'm certainly not saying it's easy. Absolutely. For someone who's struggled with this, it is not an easy thing. But the positive impact you get is worth the pain and the effort and so on. I mean, the trouble with family is you kind of can have triggers coming up as well. And I'll talk a bit more about triggers in another episode, because they are a massive thing that can be both a gift and a trauma, I suppose. All right. So basically, reflect, think a little bit about what's been going on, what started it, maybe even reframe it a little bit, and try and remember that no one is perfect. So by doing that, we can actually try and create a little bit of feelings of, I suppose, almost understanding, perhaps even empathy. And even harder than that is to actually try and see the situation from the other person's point of view. Remembering that we are only seeing what's happening through our filters, our conditioning, all of those sorts of things. So sometimes it can be really useful to actually try and look at it from a different perspective. Not easy, like I'm saying, none of this is easy, but the bonus that we get from it is worth it. So once you've decided to forgive the other person, and it takes a while to get to that, as I know, I had to go through it a few times. Yes, I'm going to forgive this person. And then something would happen. No, I'm not. And then I get back into the cycle. But you've decided to forgive them, so do it without expectations. Forgiveness is about changing you, not the other person. You can, depending on the situation, perhaps have a situation where, the relationship can be restored, where you might be able to talk to the other person about how you've been feeling, get their point of view. But you'd have to make sure that you're in an emotional state to be able to do that without it spiraling out of control. So it can be cathartic. Sometimes it can be useful to write it down and like as a letter, and give them a letter as another way. If though the situation is that you can't talk to the person for whatever reason, so maybe they've passed on, maybe they are just unwilling to have any communication with you, whatever. So if you, or you just don't feel comfortable with the situation, I mean, there's lots of different layers to that. So you can actually journal about it and, go through some of these things, think about it. Or if you've got someone who you really trust, that you can make clear to that person that you just want them to kind of be a sounding board, a listener, then talk out the whole situation, the reflection and that kind of thing. You don't want them to be kind of sitting there offering you advice and getting you sucked back into the negative emotions, which can sometimes happen if you pick the wrong person. So, choose who could support you fairly carefully. And then just let it go. Don't, allow it to come back and impact you like I did. Just go, which I mean, nowadays I do. Sometimes I'll get triggered by something. It'll make me think of it. And I'll just go, no, that's fine. That's in the past. It has nothing to do with the present. I'm letting it go. I have a bit of a process to go through. All right. So forgiving someone isn't easy. And as I just said, sometimes you have to repeat it. But think about the impact on you that is so positive. It is worthwhile actually doing it. Okay. So having said all of that, this, as you can tell, is something that I've worked with quite a bit, and I include it in some of the ways that people can work with me. So if you're interested in finding out more, then I'm quite happy for you to put yes in the comments. There's a couple of different programs that I have that actually help people fairly easily release some of these feelings and start to move through them. So easy, but still with a bit of a challenge to them. All right. But still, if you're interested in that, if you feel like you need some support and you feel like I could help you, then put yes. Otherwise, find some other people who might be able to help you. So counselors and so on can help you move past these emotions as well. All right, so thank you for joining me today. I know I have changed to a different time. I was finding Monday night was just creating a little bit of a problem with my schedule, so I'm trying out a few different times. We'll see how Sunday afternoon works. And have a really great week. Hopefully you'll have it filled with some wonderful, positive events, situations, and emotions. So I hope that you have a really enjoyable week. And thank you for joining me. Thank you, Ros, for your little bit of interaction there as well. Goodbye.